I knew I was always the easy target, but I had convinced myself it didn't matter. I smiled at everyone, nodded when I disagreed, and tried to stay invisible enough to avoid trouble. Yet at tonight's company party, I felt the weight of every glance, every whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. "Ethan, come grab a drink." Claire waved at me, her smile warm but hesitant. I forced a grin and walked over. "You actually wore that tie?" Mark's voice cut through the laughter. I froze. He wasn't looking at me directly. He was looking at the others gathered around him, enjoying every second. "What?" "It's my favorite," I said, trying to sound casual. My voice cracked. Leela laughed softly beside him. "It's unique," she said. Not the word I wanted to hear. Mark leaned back, smirking. "Unique. That's one way to put it. Honestly, Ethan, I've never seen someone try so hard and still look. Well, pathetic." I felt my stomach twist. I wanted to retort to tell him he had no idea who he was talking to, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I smiled awkwardly, hoping anyone would change the subject. Claire frowned and muttered, "Mark, that's enough." Mark laughed, loud and deliberate. "Come on, Claire, it's just a joke. He doesn't even realize how spineless he is." I blinked. Spineless. That's what he called me. My chest tightened. Lila's gaze lingered on him, admiration clear in her eyes. I had never felt smaller. "Ethan, are you okay?" Claire asked quietly. Her voice was soft, but I couldn't meet her eyes. I nodded, though it felt meaningless. I backed away slightly, scanning the crowd. Everyone was smiling, laughing, pretending everything was normal. And I realized they weren't pretending. They all thought I was a joke. My so-called friends, my coworkers. Even Lalatha, one person I wanted to notice me, they all saw me as weak. Mark clapped his hands together. "All right, enough of that. Who's up for some drinks?" He didn't wait for an answer. Lila followed, her laughter trailing behind her. I stood frozen, watching them go. I wanted to run, to disappear, but I stayed. I stayed and felt every glance burn. Every whispered snicker made my ears ring. My hands shook slightly as I gripped the edge of a table. Pretending to be busy with my phone, Claire returned, placing a hand lightly on my shoulder. "You'll be fine," she said. I wanted to believe her, but the humiliation pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't lift. I watched Mark from across the room, laughing, confident, untouchable. And me? I was still the same person everyone laughed at behind my back. My crush admired him, my friend worried quietly, and I felt invisible and ashamed. That night, I realized something I had tried to ignore for too long. Everyone I trusted saw me as a joke. And for the first time, I couldn't convince myself that it didn't matter. I walked into the office that morning, feeling a knot in my stomach. My presentation was ready. I thought I had prepared every detail. Yet, as I approached the conference room, I overheard laughter. Not the casual kind. The mocking kind. "You're really counting on him to pull this off?" Mark's voice dripped with amusement. I froze just outside the door. "What are you talking about?" I whispered to no one. "Watch and see," Mark said, grinning at his colleagues. The room filled with people as I set up. The slides loaded, but something felt off. Graphs were missing. Figures wrong. I frowned, clicking frantically. That's not right. One of my coworkers, Jenna, glanced at me nervously. "Ethan, your presentation." "I know," I hissed. "This isn't what I prepared." Mark leaned casually against the wall, sipping coffee. "Relax, Ethan. Maybe you're just not cut out for this." Wanted to shout, to scream, to throw the laptop out the window. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered fiercely, mostly to myself. He smirked. "Doing what?" I didn't touch anything. "Just bad luck, maybe?" "Bad luck?" "This is deliberate," I said through gritted teeth. My hands shook. After stumbling through the worst presentation of my life, I slumped in my chair as my team politely clapped. I caught Mr. Caldwell's eyes across the room. He raised an eyebrow, but there was no judgment, only concern. "Ethan, can we talk?" he asked quietly after the meeting. I followed him into his office. I messed up. Everything's ruined. Everyone laughed at me. Not everyone, Ethan. But I can see why you feel that way, he said calmly. Tell me what happened. I think Mark sabotaged my slides. Everything was wrong when I got in. He's laughing at me now. My voice cracked. I trusted him. I thought he was my friend. Mr. Caldwell leaned back. Betrayal is harsh, but if you let anger control you, you'll destroy yourself before anyone else gets the chance. Anger? I'm beyond anger. I feel humiliated, useless, pathetic. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling dizzy. He nodded. Good. Feel it. Accept it. Then decide what you'll do with it. That's the turning point. I wanted to argue, to say I didn't know if I could recover. Instead, I sat in silence, letting his words sink in. Later, I found Mark at the break room, chatting with the others like nothing had happened. Mark, can we talk? I demanded. He looked up, feigning innocence. Sure, Ethan. What's up? You sabotaged my presentation. I know it. Why? He laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. I didn't sabotage anything. You really think I'd go out of my way for you? Come on, face it. You're just bad at your job. Chest tightened. You're a liar. I spat. Maybe he shrugged, smirking. But it doesn't change the fact that you're weak. Spineless. Everyone saw it today. I wanted to grab him, shake him, make him admit it. But I couldn't. He walked away, laughing, leaving me trembling. I returned to my desk. Hands shaking, staring at the ruined slides. My world felt smaller, colder. I had thought I was careful, unnoticed, safe. Now I realized how fragile that illusion was. Was I really just spineless? Had I spent my life avoiding conflict, trying to please everyone, only to be humiliated like this? Mr. Caldwell's words echoed in my mind. Decide what you'll do with it. I didn't know the answer yet, but for the first time I questioned everything about who I was and who I wanted to become. I didn't want to go out that night, but Lila insisted. Come on, Ethan, just one drink. It'll be fun, she said, twirling her hair like she always did when she wanted something. I hesitated. I don't know. I'm tired. You're always tired, she snapped lightly, rolling her eyes. Don't be such a bore. Mark's going to be there. He wants to see you. Something in my chest tightened. See me? Why? She laughed, but it wasn't warm. You really don't get it, do you? I like him, Ethan, not you. The words hit me harder than I expected. You what? I'm choosing Mark. Sweet, I guess, but he's exciting, confident. She said with a shrug. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. You could have just told me earlier. Why ruin your little feelings? She said, smiling at me mockingly before walking away. I sank onto the curb outside the bar, my hands shaking. People passed by, laughing, oblivious. I felt invisible, broken, like every small humiliation at work had followed me home. At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. How's work today, honey? Dinner soon? I stared at it. How could I tell her? How could I explain betrayal, humiliation, heartbreak, all at once? Instead, I typed back, I'm fine. Don't worry. Sighed, I wasn't fine. Not even close. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every insult, every betrayal played in my mind. Mark's laughter, Lila's eyes on him. My colleague's whisper's eye felt like my entire life was unraveling. I sat at my desk, opening my laptop. Instead of working, I pulled up a blank document and started writing. I feel invisible. They all laugh behind my back. Lila chose him. Mark is everything I'm not. And I don't even know who I am anymore. My fingers trembled as I typed. Writing it down made it real, but it also made it easier to breathe. I kept going, pouring out every humiliation, every sting of betrayal, every sleepless night. Why do I let them treat me this way? I try so hard to please everyone, and this is what I get. Mockery, rejection, nothing I do matters to them. The hours passed, and the pain didn't fade. But something shifted. Putting my thoughts into words was the first time I saw my situation clearly. I realized I couldn't keep hiding, couldn't keep bending to their expectations. The screen reflected my pale face, exhausted but awake. My hands hovered over the keyboard, hesitant. Could I change things? Could I stop being the person everyone mocked? I closed the laptop slowly, feeling the weight in my chest. Tomorrow, I would go back to work. Tomorrow, I would see Mark's smug face, hear Leela's laughter, and try not to crumble. But deep inside, a tiny spark flickered. Maybe this wasn't just the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something else, something I didn't yet understand. I went to bed that night staring at the ceiling, playing everything, but also thinking about what I could do differently. For the first time in months, I felt the faintest hint of resolve. I didn't expect to see Sophia that afternoon. I was sitting on a park bench, head buried in my hands, feeling like a failure when someone tapped my shoulder. Ethan. Her voice was bright, confident, impossible to ignore. I looked up, startled. Sophia. I didn't expect. You look terrible, she said bluntly, but not unkindly. What happened to you? I laughed bitterly. Everything. My life's a mess. Work, friends, Lila. It's all falling apart. She sat down beside me, eyes steady. I can see that. But you don't have to stay like this. You're better than this, Ethan, I scoffed. Better. Look at me. I'm weak, spineless, pathetic. Everyone laughs at me behind my back. Even you? She raised an eyebrow. Even me? Do you think I'd waste my time if I didn't see potential? I shook my head. I don't know. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe I'm just worthless. Sophia smiled faintly. Worthless people don't get this far. They don't keep trying, even when life kicks them down. You've been avoiding fights instead of living. That's your mistake, not your worth. I stared at her, unsure if I was hearing encouragement or just more reason to feel humiliated. So what? I just change overnight. No, she said firmly. You start small. Strategy, confidence, self-control. You learn to respect yourself first. Then the world will follow. I felt something stir inside me, a tiny spark I thought had died long ago. And you can help me? She smiled. I can guide you, but you have to want it. You have to want to stop being invisible. Do you? I hesitated. The memories of Mark, of Leela, of everyone laughing at me, pressed on me like weights. Yes, I said finally, voice trembling. I want it. I want to stop being the guy everyone mocks. Good, she said, leaning back on the bench. First, we start with mindset. No excuses. You'll face challenges, yes, but that's when growth happens. Every humiliation you've suffered, fuel for change. I swallowed hard. Every humiliation? Every single one. That embarrassment at the party, the failed presentation, that rejection. It's all energy. You can let it crush you, or you can use it to rebuild. I clenched my fists, feeling my heart beat faster. I'm tired of being crushed. Then rise, she said simply. We'll work on strategy. Social skills, public speaking, building influence. And yes, we'll also work on confidence, your presence, your voice, everything people ignored before. You'll become someone they notice, someone they can't ignore. I laughed, a short, shaky sound. It sounds impossible. Impossible is just the start for someone who's been underestimated, she said. Mark, Leela, they think they've won. They think you're weak, but you're not. Not unless you let them make you weak. I felt fire ignite inside me for the first time in months. Okay, I said, voice steadier. Okay, I'll do it. I'll start changing. She smiled wider, a spark in her eyes. Good. Tomorrow, we begin. Small steps, focused effort. You'll stumble, you'll doubt yourself, but I'll be there. And slowly, the world will see the real Ethan Jenkins. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and excitement. I can't fail this time. You might fail, Sophia admitted. but each failure teaches you how not to fail next time. That's rebirth, Ethan. This is your chance to stop being the person everyone mocks and become the person they envy. I looked out over the park, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. For the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt capable, determined. And for the first time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, could rise from all the humiliation and betrayal that had crushed me for so long. I arrived at the office early, carrying a notebook and a sense of determination I hadn't felt in months. Mr. Caldwell's office door was open, and I stepped inside without knocking. "Ethan," he said, looking up from his papers. "Back so soon?" I want to learn," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to get better, confident, strategic. I don't want to be invisible anymore." He leaned back, eyes calm. "Good, that's a start. But improvement isn't fast. You need discipline, observation, and practice." "I'm ready," I insisted. "Then we begin," he said. "First, presentation skills. You stumble because you doubt yourself. Confidence isn't fake. It's preparation. Know your material, anticipate questions, and control your body language. Let's start with a mock presentation." I set up my laptop and began, shaking at first. "Good morning. I'm Ethan Jenkins. Today I'll present." My words stumbled, but I pushed on. "Stop," Mr. Caldwell interrupted. "Look at me, Ethan. Speak like you mean it. The room isn't your enemy. You are." I took a deep breath. "The room isn't my enemy. I am better," he said. "Now continue." I ran through the presentation again, smoother this time. I could feel the tension easing, my voice carrying authority I didn't know I had. Afterward, he nodded. "Small progress, but progress nonetheless. Now, social strategy. Observe interactions at work. See patterns? People reveal their weaknesses without knowing it." I returned to my desk, eyes scanning the office. Mark was smugly bragging about a deal he barely closed, while Lila lingered nearby, hanging on his every word. I made mental notes: the arrogance, the impatience, the little cracks in their perfection. Ethan, a coworker, Jenna, whispered, "You look different, confident." I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Jess. Trying something new. You always seem more composed." "It suits you," she said, eyes curious. I nodded, feeling a rush of satisfaction. Subtle power, influence, a taste of control. During lunch, I practiced another skill Sophia had emphasized: networking and conversation. "How was your weekend?" I asked a colleague, genuinely engaging. "Good," she said, surprised. "You actually talked to me like you cared," chuckled. "I am trying." Learned a thing or two from recent experiences, small victories stacked like bricks. Each conversation, each observation, each careful interaction strengthened my confidence. I noticed my posture, my tone, my gaze. I was no longer invisible. Later, I returned to Mr. Caldwell's office. I've been watching Mark and Lila, noticing patterns. His arrogance, her blind admiration, is predictable. "Excellent," he said. "Observation is key. You're not just improving yourself, you're learning the battlefield. Keep recording what you see. Every weakness can be a future advantage." Clenched my notebook tighter. I want to be ready. Ready for everything. Studied me. "Remember, Ethan, change doesn't happen overnight. The trick is consistent effort. Push your boundaries. Fail. Learn. Adapt. That's how you rise." I left his office, heart pounding with determination. I returned to my desk, thinking about every insult, every slight, every humiliation I had endured. They had underestimated me for too long. At my workstation, I watched Mark argue with a junior colleague over minor details. His impatience showed cracks in his confidence. Lila rolled her eyes subtly, but followed him anyway. I recorded every movement in my mind, noting every flaw, every predictable reaction. "I can do this," I whispered to myself. "I'll be smarter, stronger. They won't see me coming. Even my small interactions at work became exercises in strategy: when to speak, when to stay silent, how to assert myself without aggression. The office started noticing colleagues making small compliments, subtly acknowledging my presence. By the end of the day, I felt different, not just confident, but aware, powerful in ways I had never imagined. The transformation was gradual, subtle, but unmistakable. I could feel my plan forming, my future reshaping. Mark and Lila remained oblivious to the change brewing inside me. And that, I realized, with a quiet thrill, would be their greatest mistake. I walked into the office, feeling a strange mixture of calm and anticipation. My plans were subtle, nothing too obvious, but effective. Mark was in his usual spot, smirking at his computer, unaware of the small shifts about to shake his perfect image. "Ethan, did you see the latest figures?" Jenna asked quietly as I passed. "Yeah," I said, hiding my grin. "I've been reviewing them. Some adjustments might be needed." She raised an eyebrow. "Adjustments? You mean fixing the mistakes?" I shrugged. "Just minor tweaks. Nothing they'll notice immediately." Across the room, I watched Mark glance at the spreadsheet I had overlooked. The errors were subtle, delayed, but enough to cause frustration. He muttered under his breath, slamming his keyboard lightly. "What's wrong?" I asked innocently. Mark waved me off. "Nothing. Just annoying software issues." I bit back a smile. Software issues, sure. But the truth was, my careful planning had set him up for embarrassment. Small setbacks that no one would trace back to me. Later, Leela approached my desk, hesitating. "Ethan, you're different," she said softly. I looked up, feigning casualness. "Different? How so?" "More confident. People notice you now." "I didn't think you had it in you," she admitted. Eyes flicking nervously toward Mark, who was arguing with a minor colleague over nothing. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone calm. "Thanks, I guess. I've been working on myself," she nodded slowly, conflicted. "It's just, I underestimated you. I'm sorry." "Don't worry about it," I said lightly. But inside, I felt a thrill. She was noticing the change. Realizing that I wasn't the same person she dismissed before, Mark stormed past, his expression tight. "Why isn't this working?" "I don't understand." I stayed quiet, letting him flail. His friends, minor colleagues in the office, exchanged puzzled glances. I noted every reaction, every flaw exposed by his arrogance. Jenna leaned closer. "He's going to blow up soon. Are you?" "Involved me?" I asked, pretending innocence. "I just noticed a few things." Later in the break room, Mark muttered to his friends, "Everything keeps failing. I don't know why." One of them shrugged. "Maybe you're not as good as you think, man." I felt the smallest pang of guilt. I hadn't wanted real harm, just balance. But seeing his frustration, the arrogance slipping, it was satisfying. Leela joined me for coffee after work. "Ethan, I don't know what happened to you. You're standing up for yourself now. People listen to you," smiled faintly. It took hitting rock bottom to realize I was invisible. Now I'm just paying attention and making sure people notice the real me. She looked conflicted, glancing at Mark, who was still fuming over minor errors. "I feel foolish for underestimating you, foolish." I echoed, "Maybe, but I'm not bitter. I'm just learning, observing, and taking control." The day ended and I stayed late, reviewing every interaction. Mark's small missteps, Lila's growing awareness, my colleagues' subtle acknowledgement had all confirmed that change was happening. I paused at my desk, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. This feels right," I whispered. "Not cruel, just necessary." I knew the real tests were coming. Small victories were satisfying, but the bigger gameful transformation, total control, was ahead. Yet tonight, the first pieces had moved. Mark didn't know I was behind it. Lila was questioning her judgments, and I was feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, power. I closed my notebook, a small smile tugging at my lips. Patience, I said to myself. Everything unfolds slowly. Every flaw, every mistake, every arrogance exposed, it all belongs to me now. As I left the office, I noticed Mark glaring at the elevator, unaware that the first ripple of karma had already hit. And I felt the tiniest thrill. This was just the beginning. The day of the presentation arrived, and I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. I had prepared every detail, anticipated every question, and rehearsed every line. Mark, of course, was smirking in the corner, probably assuming I'd fail spectacularly. "Ethan, you ready?" Jenna asked quietly as we walked into the conference room. "Yeah," I said, adjusting my tie. "Let's do this." The executives were seated, the room buzzing with anticipation. I took a deep breath. "Good morning, everyone. Today, I'll walk you through our new project strategy designed to increase efficiency and revenue without additional costs." Mark leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Let's see how this goes," he whispered to a colleague. I ignored him, focusing on the slides in my speech. As you can see, by restructuring the workflow and implementing targeted analytics, we can anticipate bottlenecks before they occur. One executive raised a hand. "Ethan, this is impressive. How did you account for the data discrepancies we had last quarter?" "I anticipated those," I replied confidently, clicking to the next slide. I cross-verified the numbers and created a model that accounts for outliers without disrupting the workflow. Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. I caught the tiniest flicker of doubt in Mark's eyes. His jaw tightened. Another executive spoke up. "This is exactly what we needed. Well done, Ethan. The level of detail and foresight here is exceptional." I felt my chest swell slightly, a surge of confidence washing over me. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his arrogance faltering. After the presentation, I returned to my desk, papers in hand. Mark approached, forcing a smile. "Not bad, Ethan. Lucky day, I guess." I looked at him calmly. "Luck has nothing to do with preparation, Mark. Maybe next time, you should try it," he flushed, muttering something under his breath. I could see his frustration building. The projects he had mishandled were now glaringly obvious. Colleagues whispered behind their hands, noting the contrast between his failures and my competence. Lila appeared beside me, hesitating. "Ethan, I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I judged you too quickly. You really proved yourself today." I studied her carefully, remembering past betrayals. "I appreciate that, Lila," I said slowly, "but I'm not the same person I was. I've learned not to rely on others' approval." She nodded, conflicted. I understand. I just wanted to apologize before things get more complicated." "It's fine," I said lightly, though inside I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and vulnerability. This was the first time the world truly saw the new me. I wasn't sure I was ready for it. Mark stormed past, muttering about errors in his own project that now stood out in comparison to mine. I overheard him telling his friends, "I don't know what went wrong. Everything was fine until today." I kept quiet, letting the moment linger. He had assumed superiority, and now he was being quietly humiliated, powerless to stop the shift. Later, Mr. Caldwell stopped by my desk. "I saw the presentation," he said quietly. "Exceptional work, Ethan. You're commanding respect without forcing it. That's real power." I nodded, feeling a warmth in my chest. "Thanks, sir. It feels good to finally be seen for what I can do." "Good," he said with a small smile. "Use it wisely. Confidence is powerful, but humility keeps it sharp." As the day ended, I glanced at Mark, sulking at his desk, and then at Lila, uncertain but sincere in her apology. The shift was clear. The office dynamics had changed, and I was no longer invisible. I whispered to myself, a mix of triumph and resolve in my voice. This is just the beginning. They're finally seeing me, the real me. I found Mark alone in the conference room, pretending to review files. My footsteps echoed as I approached. "Mark," I said calmly. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Ethan, what do you want?" I closed the door behind me. We need to talk. Alone. His smirk was there, but weaker than usual. Talk? About what? You've been enjoying the office spotlight lately, haven't you? I've been preparing, I said evenly. Not enjoying anything. You've been lying, manipulating, and sabotaging others for your own ego. That ends now. Mark's eyes narrowed. Lies, manipulating? Are you serious? I'm serious, I said, keeping my voice steady. Do you remember last quarter's project? The one I presented? Every error you blamed on software glitches, I traced them. They were your mistakes. Deliberately ignored. Left to look like mine. He paled, shifting uncomfortably. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to? I echoed, my tone cold. You thought I wouldn't notice? You thought everyone else wouldn't? Mark ran a hand through his hair. I didn't think it would matter. I thought I was smarter, faster, better. I shook my head. Better. You were arrogant, careless, and cruel. And now, you're exposed. Everyone sees the truth. He swallowed, panic flickering in his eyes. What? What are you going to do? I leaned forward slightly. Nothing you can't handle yourself. You've already lost control, Mark. That's your downfall. I'm not the one bringing you down, you are. He backed up against the table, silent. I could see the weight of realization settling in. His carefully built image was cracking, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The door opened then, and Lila stepped in, hesitating. Ethan, I need to say something, she said, voice soft. I glanced at her. Go ahead. I was wrong about you. About us? I judged you unfairly. I chose Mark because I didn't TC. Your potential, your strength. I held up a hand, stopping her. Leela, I appreciate your words, but I'm not the same person you once knew. I've learned to stand on my own. I don't need apologies to move forward. Her eyes filled with regret, but I felt no anger, just a quiet acknowledgement that our paths had diverged. Mark's face twisted, watching our exchange. So, she's siding with you now? Stared. I met his gaze evenly. No, she's not siding with me. She's just facing reality, Mark. Reality you chose to ignore. He sank into a chair, defeated, the arrogance gone. I didn't think. I never thought. You thought wrong, I said softly but firmly. All those times you belittled me, dismissed me, sabotaged me, you underestimated me, and now you see the consequences. Leela stepped closer. Ethan, I wanted closure. That's all. You have it, I replied. Closure doesn't mean reconciliation. It means acceptance. Accept that I've changed. Accept that you can't control me anymore. That's enough, Mark muttered under his breath, shaking his head. I can't believe this. I stayed calm, letting him stew. The power had shifted, subtly but completely. I didn't need to humiliate him further. His own guilt and incompetence were doing the work for me. Lila's eyes met mine, hesitant but sincere. You've really grown, Ethan. I see it now. I nodded. Yes, and it's not for anyone else to validate. I've grown for me. For my life. That's all that matters. She smiled faintly, understanding without argument. I felt a strange mix of pride and peace. The confrontation had been necessary. But the real victory wasn't in revenge. It was in knowing I had become the person I needed to be. Independent of anyone else's approval. Mark's panic and guilt. Lila's regret. My own growth. It all converged in that moment. The world had shifted, and I was no longer the man everyone dismissed. I was Ethan Jenkins, finally in control of my own story. I arrived at the office that morning feeling different, confident, centered, the small victories. The careful planning and the late-night preparations had transformed me. I wasn't the same Ethan who cowered at insults or avoided confrontation. Morning, Ethan, Jenna said as I walked past. There was genuine respect in her voice now. Your presentation yesterday? Amazing. Thanks, I said, smiling faintly. Means a lot, settled at my desk, reviewing reports. Mark sat across the room, his arrogance replaced by cautious hesitation. His projects were under review, errors exposed, and colleagues now questioned his competence. The shift had begun months ago, but now it was unmistakable. "Ethan, do you have a moment?" Sophia's voice called. She leaned casually against my desk. "You've changed. Really changed. Proud of you." I nodded. "I couldn't have done it without you. All the guidance, the push I needed. I finally see what I'm capable of." "You've earned it," she said, eyes gleaming. "Now, use it wisely." I smiled, feeling a strange warmth. "I will. I'm done being invisible. Done being spineless. From here on, I lead my own life." Mr. Caldwell appeared, placing a hand lightly on my shoulder. "Ethan, the difference is noticeable. Confidence, strategy, awareness. You're not just surviving anymore. You're thriving, and others are recognizing it." I exhaled slowly. It feels good to finally be seen, respected, not overlooked. He nodded. "Good. Keep this path. Remember, power without responsibility is dangerous, but you've learned humility along the way. That makes all the difference." Later, I overheard Leela and Mark talking quietly near the break room. She sounded apologetic. "Mark, I underestimated him. Ethan, he's impressive now." Mark groaned, frustration and panic evident in his voice. I can't believe it. I thought I had it all figured out." I smiled faintly, walking past them. I didn't need to confront him further. Karma had unfolded naturally. His arrogance had been his own undoing. Lila's admiration misplaced until now. I had no desire for vengeance. The world had corrected itself. At lunch, I sat with Jenna and a few other colleagues. The conversation flowed easily, laughter genuine, respect mutual. I realized that my relationships had changed to not because I demanded respect, but because I had earned it. Sophia joined us, leaning on the table. "See? You're inspiring people now. Not just your work, but your presence," I nodded. "I never imagined it could feel like this. Being valued for what I bring, not just tolerated." Mr. Caldwell appeared, watching quietly from a distance. He gave a small nod, almost imperceptible, but it filled me with a quiet pride. That evening, I returned home, reflecting on everything. Every betrayal, every humiliation, every sleepless night, each had been a step in my transformation. Mark S. failures, Lila S. regret. The office's recognitional proof that perseverance, strategy, and self-respect mattered more than approval or fear. I opened my journal, writing the final lines. I've grown. I've learned. I've survived betrayal, humiliation, and self-doubt. Now I am in control of my life. No one can diminish me. I am Ethan Jenkins, and this is just the beginning. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Sophia, smiling. "Finished writing your story?" I laughed softly. "For now, but it's ongoing. Every day is part of it," she nodded. "Good. Keep writing it wisely. The people around you will follow the energy you create. Lead with purpose, and everything else falls into place." I leaned back, looking at the city lights through the window. For the first time in years, I felt at peace, strong and proud. The world had shifted. I had shifted. And everything I had endured, every tear, every sleepless night, led me here. Mark, Leela, colleagues, they were part of the journey, but I realized it didn't matter what they did anymore. I had found my power, my direction, my voice. I whispered to myself, a quiet affirmation. I am Ethan Jenkins. I am in control. I am unstoppable. And in that moment, I believed it completely.